A very pleasant good afternoon to all of our viewers. Welcome to Let's Talk. We are delighted to be with you. Whether you are joining by a Second Advent Radio, you are on SLC Adventist, YouTube, welcome to Let's Talk. We are or you are with us on our church channel. I am having a little feedback, but I'll solve that in a minute. Wonderful. Or you are with us on our church channel. We are just delighted to have you with us, and we pray that this afternoon you will be blessed by what we have to offer you. We have an exciting topic. We are talking about the Adventist health message. We are going to be sharing for the next 2 or 3 weeks on this very important subject of health. We know that many of you are health enthusiasts and that you are very interested in living healthy for God. Today we are talking about what's the big fuss about flesh foods. And we have a special guest. Before I introduce our special guest, we want to have a word of prayer, shall we? Eternal Father and our God, we thank you for the opportunity and privilege of sharing with our friends and our viewers, whether they are listening via the internet or they are on Second Advent Radio. We thank you for the privilege and opportunity to come today and to discuss this very important subject of health. We ask that you will continue to guide and keep and grant that the presentation today will prove meaningful. Thank you for hearing and answering and for directing the proceedings. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, friends, welcome again to Let's Talk. First, I want to apologize. Last week, we had some technical difficulties. I was just in the process of recognizing some of our senior constant viewers. I'm glad you got the greeting before we had a little disruption of internet connectivity. There was a challenge in one area. So I want to take the opportunity now to say that we have multiple platforms from which you can listen. And if perchance you got the link and something were to go wrong with it, you can also join us on Facebook at South Leeward Conference. You can join us on Second Advent Radio, 101.5 FM. Second Advent also streams on TuneIn. So if for some reason you are out of range, you have internet connectivity, you can find Second Advent Radio on TuneIn. It is Second Advent Radio. You spell it out, and you would have it there on TuneIn. You can also listen on SLC Adventist. Just go to SLC Adventist, click the live program. On Sabbaths, we have one program from morning till evening. So you may have to click the live program at 3 p.m. Let's Talk comes up. And of course, we have the church channel. Those of you who are viewing via the link that was sent out, you're connected to the church channel. So there are multiple platforms that you can listen. If something goes wrong on one platform, please feel free to switch to another so that you can join us. This afternoon, as I indicated before, we are talking about health. We are discussing this important subject on health. We are discussing the issue of flesh versus a plant-based diet. And with us to discuss this very important subject is Dr. Hildemar dos Santos. He's director of the Doctor of Public Health in preventive care at Loma University. We are so delighted that Dr. dos Santos has kindly consented to be with us this afternoon. We know that you are, Dr. dos Santos, a very busy individual, and we just want to express delight in having you with us. I want to give you an opportunity to greet our viewers.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. It's my pleasure to be here. And in my department in Loma Linda, so we bring greetings from Loma Linda. One of the things that we do is community health, and are especially going to churches and help or support the mission of the church in terms of health outreach, what we call. And so with this Zoom opportunity is I think we can amplify this, and then we are happy when we can cooperate with the churches around the world. And also I have a passion for the Caribbean. I have been there for maybe 7 times. I have been one time to Antigua, and then I have been to Barbados, the Dominican Republic, Jamaica, and other islands, Trinidad and Tobago, doing the same thing. I mean, prevention, 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 and help the churches with the health message. And thank you for inviting me. And so it's my pleasure to be here.
Delighted to have you, Doc, and I'm sure that our discussion this afternoon is going to be very intriguing. Before we go into the discussion, I just want to add one word to our streaming platforms. Pastor Harris has just indicated to me that Second Advent Radio is also streaming from their website, secondadventradio.org. So you can also, if needs be, connect with secondadventradio.org, and you would find the live stream there. Well, Dr. Halliger, Dr. Dos Santos, we are delighted to have you with us, and we trust that we will have more of you. Let's dive right into our discourse for this afternoon. You know, the matter of diet is a big topic. The Seventh Adventist Church has traditionally promoted a plant-based diet. It seems apparent, though, that many members do not follow that particular lifestyle. There are those who believe that a plant-based diet is going to result in ill health. So let me begin by asking you, if I follow a plant-based diet, am I at any disadvantage nutritionally?
Well, not really. Scientifically, we can have all of our nutrients from vegetables, with a few exceptions. And I would say the only exception is the vitamin B12. So you have to be careful once you are totally vegetarian, if you are vegan. So you have to be aware of the needs of B12 that is not in any vegetable source. But other than that, it's perfectly fine to have a vegetarian diet, a plant-based diet, because in fact, this is, according to the research, is healthier. It has more health outcomes than a normal diet, and is very important. It's very important to point here that the world out there is starting to recognize the value of a plant-based diet. I just heard last week that in California, the hospitals are mandatory to have a menu for a plant-based diet, in at least in California. So in the United States, when things start in California, they try to spread around the country, and that's good news for us. So if you go to a hospital in California, and then you ask for a menu of a plant-based diet, they have these in the cafeteria for you.
That certainly is inspiring. My observation too is that there are lots of people outside of Adventist circles who are recognizing the value of healthy living, and there are very many who are opting to go the way of a plant-based diet. We want to discuss this a little more. Now, let me ask you, Doc, what was man's, but before I do that, you indicated something there. I just wanted to re-emphasize that again. A little later on, I believe next week, we're going to be talking about, in fact, I can say this now, next week, our topic is going to be, can I be a diet fanatic? And I know that there are some individuals who go to the extreme. You are indicating that if one is a vegetarian or vegan, it is important to have the vitamin B12 supplements. I just wanted you to emphasize that again.
Yeah. To complement my answer, in terms of Adventists, in the United States, the Adventist Health Study found out that Americans are maybe between 40, and in Loma Linda, they are 50% vegetarians. But around the world, I just came out with a research by the General Conference that the rates of vegetarians in the church around the world is about 20%, with ups and downs according to different countries. But one important issue is that the world is picking up, and then many many non-Adventists are becoming vegetarian nowadays, and And this would be a challenge for us, but in taking in good points is going to be something that we would not be so weirdos that we call the world here, or different if we practice a diet that is kind of recognized by the world. Well, coming back to the emphasis in terms of vitamin B12, there are three sources of vitamin B12 in foods. One is when you eat animal foods. So if you are not totally vegetarian, but you eat milk and eggs, you have a source of vitamin B12 there. The second would be foods that are fortified with vitamin B12. I don't know about Antigua, but you have maybe many foods that are imported from America.
Mhm.
Most of the soybean milks, they have vitamin B12 added to it. So that's the second source. The third source would be to take an extract or a pill. So there is no other option in terms of vitamin B12. You might need to have either one of those three if you want to be safe on that. The problem is that the deficiency on vitamin B12, it does not occur in a couple of months. It takes years. But I have had patients. I am a physician in Brazil. In America, I'm a retired physician, and I am a doctor in nutrition, and then I am a health coach too. I forgot to mention this in the introduction. But uh, I used to have patients with deficiency of vitamin B12, and one of the things that happen is back pain. Another thing is neurological compromising, and then a mental thing. A person gets a little crazy when it passes years, and I'm talking about 10 years without having any source of vitamin B12. So this is important for you to know, and if you go in the stream, you have to be aware of that.
Thank you so much. That is very useful information, and I trust that all of our listeners have received that. Well, let's go on a bit, Doc. What was man's original diet? What and was there any noticeable impact on man? We're talking about a plant-based diet versus a diet of flesh. Was there any noticeable impact on man when he was permitted to eat flesh?
Well, I believe I don't have the text with me, but when men start eating more flesh foods, this might be one of the reasons that its longevity went down. There are other theories on that. There is other speculation. We don't have a proof of that. But I believe Ellen White mentioned one in one book. I have to find this. That when you start eating flesh, you start living lower, or living not that much as the patriarchs like Noah and Adam and Melchizedek, not Melchizedek, Methuselah or Methuselah. But I believe this is one of the effects. When we came to the time of Jesus Christ, you see that we have many sick people in the island. And that was something that probably was related to their diet. Again, I don't have a proof for that. It might be a speculation. But we have leprosy, we have lames or paraplegics going around, and then Jesus healed most of them. And then but on that time I believe the diet was kind of very poor. If you check what they ate, was mostly fish and some bread and vegetables and fruits. um, Many people say, well, Jesus ate fish on that time. Well, I mean, that's a principle for diet. You don't preach a message of diet when people cannot afford that. So it's a principle for you, and for once you are talking about diet. if people don't have a way to be vegetarian or vegans in your community, so the first step should be provide options, provide opportunities for them to have it. Otherwise, you better stay in a diet that is rich in fruits and vegetables, but not necessarily avoiding all animal products.
Very useful counsel again, Doc. I appreciate that. And the matter of flesh now, if we can just talk directly about this idea, uh, eating flesh versus eating a plant-based diet, I would like to ask you, what's so bad about flesh? If I do have the options, and these days many persons do, if I do have the option, what are the ill effects of a flesh-based diet, animal diet?
Well, I will start first with our traditions, how it is started with us. So when we start our church in 1863, in the same year, with 1 or 2 months of difference, we started with our health message. Ellen White had the first vision of health in 1863, and this was the church started in May, and the message came in June, July. So our health message started together, and one center point of the health message was the diet. And I never forgot when I read all the health books that we have in the church, but one that impressed me was that it was never a plan of God for us to eat flesh foods, period. So um, we were designed to eat vegetarian foods. I would like to emphasize this to begin with, that flesh food is not natural to our bodies. We ate that, we start eating that because we didn't have enough vegetables for in the first place. In the second place, because we kind of we got addicted to it. And then the need for eating flesh foods is more an addiction than a real need, because we can have all the nutrients that we need from the vegetables and fruits, and from the vegetable kingdom, I would say. Okay, so this is the tradition. So when we started with that, we were advised to not to avoid certain types of meats, but we were advised to go progressively to eat more vegetables, more fruits, less meat, less sugar, less refined and processed foods. So it's not just meat, but meat was something that was asked us that we should avoid. And one of the main things that Ellen White mentioned about meats was contamination. And there is only one food that she mentioned in the past that was related to cancer. So this, if we read the books of Ellen White and you are a good Adventist and you believe in the Adventist message, it would be enough for us to think, well, I'm not going to eat meat because it can cause cancer. Okay, let's go to what the science says today. So still the main problem with flesh foods is contamination. So let's take a look on red meat. Red meat today has a lot of hormones, and they have to give antibiotics to the cattle, and to the chickens, and to whatever animal that you eat is being fed with a lot of chemicals. They are not as healthy as they were in the past. You would say, okay, but if I raise my own chickens, if I raise my own fish or whatever, eat something, well, it's better than not eat. But again, the principle is that our bodies were made to be vegetarians. So when God created us, he created with this principle. And then we function better with that. Related to red meat, let's start with a compartment. Red meat is related to three problems in the current medical world. First is because of its content of saturated fat, increase the risk of cholesterol, the levels of cholesterol, and then increase the risk of heart disease. So red meat is related to a higher risk of heart disease. By the way, heart disease is the main disease that kills people in the world. The main cause of death in the world is heart disease. So just for the fact that you eat less red meat, you will decrease the risk of the main cause of death in the world. Second point, red meat is related now to diabetes. Somehow, because of saturated fat of the red meat, it creates what we call free fatty acids. Free fatty acids in the circulation will go to the cells and block the effect of insulin and cause what we call insulin resistance. And this will increase the risk of diabetes. So diabetes is the main morbidity in the world and is going to be an epidemic in the world. We have more than 300 million diabetics in the world right now, and this is getting out of control. So this first one is heart disease, second one is diabetes, third one is colon cancer. Red meat is considered by the World Health Organization as a cancer-producing agent. And they advise that red meat and processed meats like salami, bologna, and all of those smoked meats should be avoided if you want to prevent mostly colon cancer and in the second, pancreas cancer too. So I would say if you consider what is in red meat, mostly because of the process that they produce it. The best way to eat red meat should be cooked and not grilled and not baked and not barbecued, because this will create benzopyrene. Benzopyrene is the same substance that causes cancer that we have in the smoking. So you are eating a barbecue, you are kind of smoking a few cigarettes once you do that, and then will increase the
Can I
risk of
interrupt
cancer.
you, Doc? Because you, I mean,
I'm talking too much. Sorry.
no, sorry to cut you, but you're saying something there that I just need to be emphasized. You're saying that because in our region, the the barbecuing is just so very popular, and you're saying that it is fraught with danger. So if I eating a lot of barbecue, it's equivalent, you're saying, to smoking cigarettes.
Yeah, it's not as smoking cigarettes, because the smoke of barbecue, you will not inhale much. But the meat that is impregnated with the smoke, that's the one that has benzopyrene, and this in this substance will be a cancer mutation substance in your stomach and your intestines. I am from Brazil, and I am from south of Brazil, the land of the gauchos, and barbecuing is our daily thing. But one time I visited I visited a place um, in Argentina, and then in Argentina, I saw they barbecuing the meat in a different way. Instead of putting the barbecue on top of the ashes on the fire, they put on the side. Because the problem is that when they put in the top, when they grill the meat, this drop the fat of the meat drop um, in
In
the
the fire.
fire, and then
Yes.
create a smoke, and this is the smoke that has benzopyrene. When you put in the side, this fat will drop on the side and will not create this smoke. Well, I'm not here to teach you how to barbecue, because the best way is to avoid that. But yes, I mean, this is not a good idea for our health. I mean, the worst type of eating meat, the worst format to eat meat is barbecuing it.
Now, some persons, I don't eat meat, but I have observed that some persons wrap the meat, the chicken, etc., in foil paper as they put it over the fire. Is that a better option, or is that also dangerous, using the aluminum
Well,
foil?
well, there is a better is better because the meat will not drop in the fire directly. But when you overheat. So whenever you overheat meat, you produce benzopyrene. So no matter what, because if you put in a foil, the fat is gonna be there. The fat is gonna be overheated. The fat will produce that.
Okay. Some persons also claim that aluminum itself can be dangerous. I am not sure about that.
Well, not really. The discussion of aluminum is not finished yet, and it looks like aluminum is a mineral that is not absorbed into the body. It's a metal. Usually you excrete that if you have in food. And there is no, I would say, confirmation in research that aluminum has a potential effect on chronic diseases. You might have a toxicity of aluminum, but this is an acute problem, not a chronic problem. Chronic problem. So I advise my clients to use more steel pan or iron pans when they cook, when they use that, and avoid aluminum. But the research is not done yet with aluminum.
All right, wonderful. Well, we have said a lot about red meat. So now there is the argument, just so that we can be very balanced here. It is said that if you use a vegetarian or vegan diet, you will lack protein. Can we get all the protein we need from a plant-based diet?
Yes, you can. But I would like to add, before we go to the protein, the two other types of meats, to address the issue of fish and to address the issue of chicken, that are the main other meats that people say. And there is a lot of people that already are avoiding red meat, but they are eating fish, they are eating
Well,
chicken.
I need to let you know that Antigua, my little island in the Caribbean, is super addicted to chicken. We have a fast food chain here called Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Uh-huh.
And during the lockdown, people were demonstrating for the government to give permission for that fast food store to open. Antiguans just love their fried chicken. Go right ahead, Doc.
Well, one of the situation on that is that mostly the fish and the chicken are contaminated. So I would tell you to avoid to eat those foods raw in any form. Sushi is not a good idea. And also, when you cook chicken, you have to cook well, because chicken are 100% contaminated, either with Salmonella, Campylobacter, or Escherichia coli. So those are the three main bacteria that you find in chicken. So even if you cook, when you cook that, you have to clean your utensils very well with hot water, because the bacteria will be there. And be sure that you cook well. And then we create a problem. If you cook well the chicken because it's contaminated, what you are eating? You are eating dead bacteria. So is that good for you? Uh, I'm not sure. But chicken also has a lot of hormones. Chicken has been modified genetically to produce more meat. So you are exposed to other things that are not the healthiest part of the diet. So I would say it's not safe to eat any meats nowadays. The problem with fish is also contamination with mercury. Maybe in your island they are safer than other places, but don't forget that most of the fish they concentrate in areas that are polluted to get their nutrients. And then you fish them far away, miles away, thinking that, well, this is a safe place. But they came from the areas that are rich in pollutants. And this is very important also related to the seafood. Seafood are the ones that stay in the bottom of the sea. And then as they stay in the bottom, they receive all the droppings of the oceans. And many seafoods are caught, are fished in areas where we have the sewage for the cities. And this is common here in Los Angeles. You might eat shrimp. I don't eat that. We don't eat that. But shrimp is fished in the sewage of the Los Angeles city. And if you check where your seafood comes from, or your friend's seafood come from, you see that they come from a contaminated area. So this is related to fish. Some people say, well, but I have a fish farm. I eat fish from a farm. Well, the fish in the farm, they have another problem. They have the parasites. Again, contamination in the animal food is the worst things. Then, if they have parasites, you have two choices. Either you have to put pesticides there to kill the parasites, then you contaminate the fish, or you don't put that, and then you have more parasites. And again, you have to cook well the fish, otherwise you are eating fish with parasites and alive sometimes, and that's not a good idea. The issue that people blame the vegetables and say, well, vegetables have a lot of pesticides and we should not eat that. But if you compare the half-life of the pesticides in the vegetables, it is very short. It goes there, circulate there, and is eliminated through the water. But the half-life of the pesticides in the fat tissues of animal foods is much higher. So you have a higher risk to get pesticides if you eat meats, whatever meat it is, than if you eat just vegetables. So this is important to consider. And then now let's go to the protein. You want to ask a question, or can I go direct to the proteins?
Well, you're going so well. I myself, I'm forgetting that I'm supposed to be asking you questions. But I was going to ask you about the matter of the proteins. Yes, let's talk about that. There are lots of folks who say that, well, I want to give up flesh, but if I do, I'm going to lack protein. So I was asking whether we can be guaranteed sufficient protein from plant-based diet.
The problem with proteins is that we were kind of brainwashed that protein is the most important nutrient for our health, and that's not true. The most important nutrient for our health is fruits and vegetables, the minerals and vitamins. And then proteins is about 25% of our diet. I can show later on the video where we have a plate that shows the amount of protein. But usually, I mean, in general, we need to have about 56 grams of protein for male and 46 grams of protein for female. And then we have this protein easy to find that in the vegetables without any needs for protein from animal sources. Usually meat and chicken and fish, they have about 18 to 19 grams for protein for 100 grams of the food. And then 1 cup of bean will have that also, of beans. And then we have proteins in nuts, we have proteins in soybeans, we have protein in mushrooms, we have protein in all kinds of foods. You have proteins. So I would say we don't need to be that worried about protein. In the past, there was a concern about protein because of the essential amino acids. And then some mentioned that meat will have all the essential amino acids that we need. But if you are vegetarian, you don't have it. But today we know that if your diet has at least beans or legumes and cereals like rice and oatmeal or bread, you have a combination of proteins that has all the necessary amino acids that you need. And essentially, if you eat soybeans, the latest research saying that soybean contain mostly all the essential amino acids. So you don't need to have you don't need to worry about protein if you want to go into the vegetarian diet. And we advise that you go in a progress. If you are um, normal eater and you eat meat normally, the first step would be, okay, let's go to a lacto-ovo vegetarian for a while, and then you can progress and get if you have the options, get to a total vegan diet or a plant-based diet. But this transition sometimes is important for you to not have a deficiency to begin with.
Amazing stuff here, Doc. Let me ask you this question that one of our viewers has posted. You earlier mentioned the matter of B12, the need to have B12 either through the fortification of foods or as a supplement if you are especially vegan. The person wants to know, where did man get B12 before sin?
Well, the issue is that B12 is found in your intestines, and even your mouth is rich in B12. The problem is that B12, in fact, is produced by bacteria. And so if you live in a place close to a forest that maybe I'm a little idyllic here, but and it has a pit, a well that gets the water from the well, this water contains vitamin B12. The problem is with the years, we kind of use so many pesticides, so many antibiotics, so many chemicals that we kind of kill this bacteria that produce B12, and then this is not enough for us to have enough B12 in our own body. So I believe I believe in the theory of the involution. Go with me, involutions, that we were a little more perfect in the past um, in this regard, and we lost this ability because of our habits, because of our system of producing foods. So when you put pesticides in a field, you eliminate all these bacteria that produce B12, and then we lack on that. Some people, however, are total vegetarian, and I believe there is a percentage of 30% that don't have the deficiency. So is it possible? It is still possible to be total vegetarian and not having a deficiency of that. But I would not play with that because it's a little risky. You should only do that if you can check your vitamin B12 and your um, uh, in your blood check, because if you check your blood for there is what we call microcytic anemia, that is common in people that have a low levels of vitamin B12. So we if you have constantly done that, you periodically, I would say, in your yearly checkup, so you are safe to go. But I always advise that you have a source of B12, and it's not much. I mean, according to the World Health Organization, we need 5 micrograms of B12, and most of the products, they have 50 micrograms added to the products. Most of the vitamins that you find, a multiple vitamin, will have much more than that. So you don't need to have every single day a pill or every single food with B12.
You just mentioned the amount that we need, and there was a question, would I need, and how much would I need, and how long can my body go on a daily amount before needing more? This person again is asking about the vitamin B12. What amount? I think you just mentioned that. What amount of B12 would I need, and how long can my body go on a daily amount before I need more? The individual seems to want to know, how soon does it take for the body to run out of this stuff?
Well, this is very discussable among the nutritionists. I would say that we have to have a source of B12 every at least 3 or 4 times per week. You have to have a source of B12 there. 3 or 4 times per week is my opinion on that. Most of the dietitians will say that you need daily. There are other categories of people. There are two other categories of people that have deficiency of B12. One is the one that has a stomach problem. If you have a tendency to gastritis, ulcers, if you have a problem, digestive problems, you might not absorb B12 as you would, because there is one substance called intrinsic factor that is produced in the stomach, and that intrinsic factor increases the absorption of B12. If you don't have the intrinsic factor for any reasons or because of your digestive situation, so you might need a little more of a higher intake of B12. The second people is older people. If you are, I would say, 67 or 65 and older, usually old folks they are deficient they are deficient in B12. So we advise for old folks to eat more B12. As old folks also have digestive problems and they don't absorb very well because of the age. For this population, I would advise to have a daily intake of B12 in the forms of a extract of a pill together with the meals. And that's my advice for old folks. You should be daily. For normal people, if you don't have any digestive problems, 3 to 4 times a week as supplementation or ingestion of foods that have B12 would be the advice.
But perhaps one of these days we can have an entire program on vitamins and their usefulness, their effects. There are those who believe that it has been commercialized. But what I want to ask, especially in the matter of the B12, because you go into a health food store and there is vitamin B12. The price is pretty expensive, and they tell you this is organic and those kinds of things. And then you walk into a pharmacy and there is also B12. There is the matter of the vitamins that are manufactured. So that what guide can you give if I'm vegan and I want to take B12 supplementation? Should I be concerned about buying artificial B12 as opposed to buying B12 that is naturally occurring somewhere, and hence the reason why in one place it can be so inexpensive and in another place it can be so expensive?
Well, I think it's I don't know much the market that they have in Antigua in terms of vitamins and minerals, but there is no much difference between organic or non-organic vitamin B12 production, and the only advantage of organic products is in the pesticides that they use, and not because they are richer in terms of minerals and vitamins. So this is an issue for another discussion. But I would say you go for your vitamins and you don't worry much about the price on that. And the commercialization. People try to make more money addressing that this is organic and this is much better quality, and the quality is going to be the same. Again, the only problem would be pesticides that they use in crops, that would increase the risk of exposure to pesticides. But in terms of vitamins, this is going to be very minimal. No, there is no problem on that.
Now someone has sent me personal WhatsApp here asking about the dangers of soy. There has been a lot said. I do understand that sometimes research comes out and say this is good for you or that is bad for you, and sometimes we have to check who does the research, who sponsors the research. But a lot has been said about soy, and some say that soy has carcinogenic properties, and one, especially ladies, should not eat too much. So can you say a word on soy products and whether it's dangerous or it's healthy, whether we should be careful or have reasons for concern?
Yeah, there is no problem with soy whatsoever. I attended many lectures by Dr. Messina, that is the soy guru in the world. The soy expert in the world is Dr. Messina, Messina. So if someone wants to check that, Google that name, and you will have the most updated messages about soybeans in the world, Dr. Messina. And according to him, the problem with soy is only if you eat high intakes of isoflavones, that is one of the components of soy. And then if you took that in terms of pills and high dosage, so you might have some side effects related to the thyroid and related to mostly for men, we might create some estrogenic effect. But I'm talking about higher doses that even if you take as a supplementation, you don't get there. So eating soybean is not related to anything. I just want to mention a story here. We have a pastor in Brazil for many years that was not vegetarian and he entered in a fight against soybeans. I don't know what had in his mind. He was not promoting the good ones, and he was attacking the ones that were using substitute for meat, because soybeans is a rich source of protein. Soybeans is a rich source of uh, antioxidants that are in fact against cancer. Girls that were born in China without eating soybeans since they were young infants, they never developed breast cancer in their whole life. And so this issue is all propaganda. What happened with this pastor is he ended up with stomach cancer and died. And then I was saying, okay, man, I never fight with him, but I think sometimes we take the wrong message. And the wrong message is that, okay, soybean is bad. I mean, of course, if you can have organic soybeans and not GMO soybeans, is better. But still, the problem that we have in our food is not in the vegetarian kingdom, is in the animal kingdom, as I mentioned before.
All right, Doc, we have a number of questions. I know that the interest is very high based on the number of comments and questions that we're getting here. I want to ask two questions at one time. First, this person is asking, is it safe to eat chicken that's raised naturally, fed on corn or grass or other grains? You know, I remember one day I was visiting and I passed by a farm and there were just some little chicks, baby chicks. And in 2 weeks' time, I went back to the same area and I was amazed at how big those little chickens had grown in a matter of 2 weeks. Definitely, there were lots of chemicals, hormones to increase their growth and to develop them so that they could reach maturity much quicker. So one person is asking, can I take the safer option and rear my own chicken that eat the gravel and the grass and that kind of thing? And the second question is, those hormones that are being injected in these animals, can they also have an effect on human beings who consume them?
Well, I just want to answer that in the perspective that I started this. First of all, we were not raised, we are not created to eat meats. So you should adjust yourself as much as possible to the original diet. So that's the way to go.
Mhm.
Second is that chicken. My son has a chicken farm, not a farm, but he has chicken that he raises in his backyard, and they eat the eggs, and they are not vegetarian. Um, what I would say is that is much better than the chicken that you eat in KFC, in Kentucky Fried Chicken, or the eat that you buy in the store that are produced by these hormones, and somehow these hormones will have an effect on your health for sure. We don't know much about that, but I would say one problem is cancer development. There is one researcher called Dean Ornish, and he was one of the first that is researching the effects of meat eating and cancer. And what he did is that he got people with prostate cancer that were treated by other methods, and then he put them in a plant-based diet. And then after a few months, they collect their bloods and they check what happened in their internal organs or internal circulation regarding to the genetic profile for cancer. I have to explain it. It's a little complicated, but our body is full of small genes in each cell. We have basically related to cancer two types of genes. One that is gene suppressor, that they suppress the cells when the cells start multiplying. And then we have the oncogenes, that are the genes that push the cells to multiply. So when they did this plant-based diet for a few months, the genes that are suppressing cancer were increasing their expression, and the genes that are oncogenes were suppressed. So clearly, they showed that a diet that does not contain animal food is one of the best diets for cancer. After I read that, I mean, I already have this prescription for cancer patients to go on a plant-based diet, but this emphasizes the point that we don't have research enough yet about chicken and fish and things, but we know that in terms of cancer, the safe way to go is without any of those things because of this proportion of genes that are activated once you eat that. And again, I have to repeat this again because you forgot. The only food that Ellen White mentioned that produce cancer is meats. It's not just meat, it's meats. And then there is no other food. You can go in the spirit of prophecy from A to Z, and you will not find any other food that she specifically say, be careful, this is a cancer-producing food. And this is what the science is finding now. Even if you, because Ellen White mentioned, if you have your cow, if you have your chicken, you will have a better option. But it's not that easy. I was a director of a clinic in Brazil for years, and I tried to raise cows in that clinic. And I'll tell you, these cows were sick for whatever reason. The animals are not, I would say, perfect anymore. They are not safe food anymore because they get sick very easy. And then if you drink their milk, and if you eat their eggs, and they are sick, you might eat the same sickness. And then when they died, they were sick for months before, and then we never know what their health is. Well, coming back to my son, and I was looking at their chicks and the chickens, and they were in the backyard. And the chickens in the backyard would eat everything. If they would eat just the grass and the corn, that would be good. But they eat the worms, they eat the cockroach, they eat the grasshoppers, they eat the bugs. They are exposed to mosquitoes, they are exposed to ticks, to other bugs. So everything is contaminated today, and so even though you try your best to be the best, I would say the best is still is to go on plant-based direction.
You
That's
know,
my
Doc, this may be our final question because time is up. There are lots of questions we don't have time to answer. I really hope that you can plan to be with us another time so that we can continue this interesting discussion. But at that point you made there, it's appropriate for me to ask this question. Somebody is here saying meat is definitely not healthy. However, can we not also say that the vegetables and fruits produced today are laden with chemicals that are harmful to us? How do you compare the chemicals and the meats? The chemicals have fertilizers. I mean, the fruits and vegetables have fertilizers. And the person wants to know, how do you compare the fertilizers in the chemicals and the meat? I believe you made a reference to it earlier, but in light of what you're discussing now, maybe you can just say that again.
Yeah, I already answered this partially. I just want to compare what they did in California in one of the lakes. They went to the lakes and they measured the amounts of pesticides that they found. And so the first level that they measured was the plankton. Plankton is the vegetables of the lake. Then they found a small amount of pesticides on that. Then they measure the fish that eats the vegetarian fish, and they have a higher level of anti of pesticides in their flesh. Then they check the fish that eat the fish, the carnivore fish, and those are the ones that have the highest level of pesticides. And this is the same in our diet normally. So the vegetables are still the lowest level of pesticides that we can find in our food choices. So because of the the time that these pesticides stay in the vegetables, normally they pass fast into the vegetables and are excreted by the water. They don't store in the vegetables in the fruits as much as they store in the meat. So if you are concerned about pesticides, you should be concerned about eating fattening foods that are rich in meats, because that is where the pesticides are deposited. That's my response for that.
Well, Doc, I thank you so much. It was a real pleasure talking with you. You have a wealth of knowledge. There are several areas, other areas I would like to explore with you. We will dialogue about having you back on Let's Talk. We have a lot of unanswered questions, and I'm going to save these questions and dialogue with you so that we can come. We have next week lined up already, but I will discuss with you whether you can join us again before the month is over so that we can continue this very intriguing discussion. Now, friends, next week we have an exciting topic. The topic for next week is, can I be a diet fanatic? That's next week. It's an interesting discussion. And the week after, we're talking about our fitness and our witness. So all in the area of health, we want you to be sure to join us on Let's Talk. We are here every Sabbath afternoon from 3 to 4 p.m. We want you to tell your friends, your loved ones, send the link to them, let them know that Let's Talk is on. And Dr. Dos Santos, it was such a delight to be with you. We're going to give you a minute to just give some closing remarks because we do have to wrap it up now. Final remarks, Doc.
Thank you very much for having me. I really enjoyed this type of conversation and the interaction, the questions. And sometimes I might seem a little extreme on what I say, but I believe we have the advice in the Bible related to our diet. we have the advice when we started our church regarding our diet, and we have the science that is confirming all of this. So if we don't go in that direction, is our choice. Remember, God does not make choice for you. You make the choice. But I guarantee, if you make the good choices, your life is gonna improve. So I would advise, do your best to eat more fruits and vegetables and grains and legumes, and decrease your animal food. More vegetables, less animals. That's the secret of health.
Thank you so much. God bless you. This is where we end our Let's Talk session for today. We didn't answer the question about the flesh foods and the church's compound, but when we come back